The amusement park had been abandoned for 30 years. Once a place filled with laughter and flashing lights, it now stood as a skeletal ruin, overtaken by rust and decay. The Ferris wheel creaked in the wind, the game booths sat in silence, and the faded clown faces on the entrance sign had long since peeled into grotesque grins. But the roller coaster, the Hellbound Express, remained untouched, its twisted metal tracks defying time. No one dared to approach it, not since the accident.
The Legend of Hellbound Express.
Decades ago, the Hellbound Express had been the park's main attraction. A massive wooden coaster, built to be the tallest and fastest of its time, promising thrills that would leave riders breathless. On opening night, the first train filled with eager passengers climbed its steep ascent, the rickety tracks groaning beneath the weight, but the ride never returned. Eyewitnesses recalled hearing screams horrible, drawn-out shrieks that seemed to stretch far beyond the ride's duration. The track should have looped back to the station, but it never did. The train vanished, swallowed by the darkness at the highest peak of the ride. The next morning, the park staff searched frantically, but there were no bodies, no wreckage, just empty, rust-streaked seats gliding eerily into the station, still warm as if the riders had just been there. The park shut down within weeks. Some claimed the roller coaster had been built over an ancient burial ground. Others whispered about the ride's architect, a man who had gone mad before completion, muttering about a doorway that should never be opened. No one knew the truth until the night a group of trespassers decided to find out.
The Ride That Never Ends.
They came in the dead of night, 4 of them, armed with flashlights and cheap beer. Urban explorers looking for a thrill. The park was a wasteland of decay, but the Hellbound Express still stood. Its towering frame loomed against the night sky, the tracks stretching into the mist like skeletal fingers. The station was still intact, and to their amazement, the control panel lit up when one of them brushed the switch. The coaster rumbled to life, the train's doors hissed open, beckoning. The group hesitated, but only for a moment. They climbed inside, laughing, daring each other to go through with it, the restraints lowered on their own. And then, without warning, the ride began.
The Descent into Horror.
The ascent was slow, agonizing. The roller coaster groaned and trembled as it climbed higher and higher, the rusted chain pulling them toward the peak. The air grew thin, suffocating. Then they noticed the first wrong thing. The ground below was gone. Where there should have been the rest of the amusement park, there was only blackness, a swirling, endless void. Then came the whispers. Disembodied voices murmured in their ears, speaking in a language not meant for human tongues. Cold breath brushed against their necks. The darkness below them began to shift, to move. Something was waiting. As they reached the peak, the track should have curved downward. Instead, it extended forward, stretching impossibly into the abyss. There was no turning back. The coaster plunged.
The Curse Unleashed.
They screamed, not in thrill, but in raw, primal terror. The darkness rushed past them, swallowing their cries. Shadows clawed at their skin, peeling away layers of flesh as they hurtled downward. One of them vanished mid-air, his seat empty, before he could even scream. Another clawed at his own face, his eyes blackened pits before he dissolved into dust. The ride went on, the track spiraling through a nightmare realm where shapes crawled and twisted, where unseen hands reached out from the void. And then, abruptly, the coaster returned to the station. The remaining seats were empty. The ride was over. The control panel flickered off. The air was silent once more. The next morning, authorities found the group's phones and cameras abandoned at the station. No sign of the trespassers. The footage on their devices showed only darkness and, just before cutting off, the faint sound of something laughing.
The Ride Never Ends.
The Hellbound Express remains standing to this day, untouched by time, waiting. And sometimes, on windless nights, the chain lift rattles to life on its own. The station doors hiss open, and the ride begins again,